Ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between of the worldwide international web, you are watching episode 3 of a podcast thing, um, which is all about King Kendrick Lamar. But before we get deeper into that, I'm going to introduce everyone. I'm Ellis, of course, your trusty host. To my bottom, uh, I have Mr. Sam Victory, who is currently a student at Eastbourne University. He's obviously not there right now because no one's anywhere right now. We're all at home. Um, he's studying journalism. He's a very keen fan of Mr. Kendrick. And we went and saw Tyler Creator together last year, and it was great and very sweaty, and it was lovely.
Very fun.
Yeah.
And then I followed it up with Carly Rae Jepsen a few months later.
Which I wasn't invited to, which is fine. I wasn't invited to.
Well, I'm sorry.
When we went to see Tyler, we also got stuck at Heathrow Airport for about 5 hours or something because they wouldn't drive us to we parked our car. Anyway, less anecdotes. To my this direction is George, who is a young lad from Swindon area.
Sound lad.
Sound lad, who's also a keen fan of music in general, and occasionally dabbles in hip hop. Has recently come into listening to the works of Mr. Kendrick Lamar.
Very recent.
And are you working on music at the moment?
Yeah. I just, I'm figuring out how to use GarageBand.
Oh, right, okay. Everyone with an Apple device at home at the moment is kind of like, maybe I'll give GarageBand a go. Yeah.
Using my whack ass iPhone.
Oh, you do it on iPhone? Wow.
Yeah, even better.
But this is our crowd. So I've been starting all of these podcast episodes with what we've all been consuming recently, whether that's music, film, video games, biscuits, rich tea, sponge cakes, whatever you got going on. Sam, what have you been entertainment-wise consuming?
I've been listening to a lot of Michael Jackson, like recently for some reason, and then I also went back to Tyler Creator's old stuff like Wolf and stuff. Like Tamale's been on repeat for the last week. Like just that song. Who else? I found someone like just a little singer-songwriter called like Bida Booty, I think, or something like that. Like she's English Asian, has a song called Coffee, which is quite chill. Yeah, and then got Animal Crossing last week.
Naturally.
So,
how have you been getting on with that?
If I go onto it today, my house should be ready.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Should have been on last episode.
Yeah, should have been on the last episode. Although everyone on the last episode about Animal Crossing had put in at least like 100 hours into it, so...
It would have been the me.
Did you watch the last episode, George?
No. I mean, of course I did.
You're a fake fan. So what have you been consuming recently, George?
I watched the Watchmen TV show that came out last year. I hadn't watched it, so I had a dabble. And
what did you think?
As a big fan, I love it.
It's amazing. Really cool. It's so good. It's so good.
As I also just read I finished the graphic novel again. I thought I'd give it a go, and it's so good. It's so good.
It's a very good book, but it's a very good TV show. The TV show, I think, in some ways, I prefer to the Zack Snyder film even, but it's such an interesting way of taking Watchmen, and there's no bad episodes, and the whole thing is just
that Hooded Justice episode is so
good. It's so amazing. But yeah, Watchmen. What else have you been?
Well, as I never listened to Kendrick until about 2 weeks ago. He's all I've been listening to. The 3 albums we're talking about, I've been listening about 5 times each.
Doing your research.
Yeah, I'm doing homework more than I'm doing schoolwork, which is neat.
This is the important one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just watching all the Star Warses as well. Some of them are great. Some of them are not great.
I have been mostly I've mostly just been watching The American Office, which I've never watched through before. I'm on like season 7 now, so I'm nearly done. I've been playing Animal Crossing a little bit every day, getting a bit tired of it now. And I've also just been going back through all of the Resident Evil games, and some of them which I've never finished before. I've been streaming them as well, which has been quite fun, and I should have a funny moments compilation going up sometime soon. So look out for that on this channel.
Are you doing the remakes as well?
Yeah, so I already played through RE2 and RE3. I did a Let's Play of RE3. It's just not together, and I haven't done it. I haven't put it together. But yeah, I've been playing. At the moment, I'm on RE4, Resi 4, which is considered by most people to be like the best one. And I've never played through it before, and I'm very much enjoying it. But I will probably be I Twitch streamed that a bit last night. Had a good conversation with some people. Actually, had some watchers. So I'll probably carry on with that again after this podcast. It's a very fun game. I haven't done Twitch streaming in ages, but it is a good time.
I might watch.
I'd appreciate it greatly. I'd love to have your input. In terms of quick news, before we dive in even further, Slow Tie released a new song last week, Enemy, which is a very subtle play on what happened at the Enemy Awards towards the end of last year. I don't know if you saw this, George, but he basically got very drunk and tried to I don't know, kiss Catherine Ryan on stage. It was a weird one. But this new song is about that. It's quite mean in tone, and part of the sample of the beat is someone's obnoxious laugh in the crowd, and he's sampled it. I listened to it first time, I wasn't that impressed, but the second time round I enjoyed it.
That's quite funny.
Yeah, because he calls himself a petit falou, or calls someone else petty falou or something.
He says, I think he says, "I'm petty falou." You know, I'm petty falou. He's got British bars for days. In other terms of news, obviously, because this podcast and this channel at the moment is all about video games and hip hop, seems to be the only two things I talk about, which is all that matters. Obviously, Little Sims dropped a new EP last week, dropped 6. I think it's fine. It's not anything on grey area. I don't know if you listened to it yet, Sam, but the opening song.
I've listened to it. Yeah, the opening song on it is
very good. Might Bang, Might Not. Yeah. The opening track, Might Bang, Might Not, is a banger, and I'm very on board with it. But yeah, little grey area is still in my it's still very, very good and above what she's written. But I think she just released this as a fun little thing during lockdown. News as of this morning, weird thing that PlayStation have done. They've launched their own Marvel Studios style logo intro thing that's going to start playing before every first party PlayStation game. And yeah, you can see it on YouTube. It's basically just a Marvel Studio style thing with the PlayStation logo comes up, and it's got Kratos and Last of Us in the background. It's weird, but I think apparently for the new PS5 and coming generations, they're going to start slapping this symbol on their boxes for the games that are first party, like Last of Us, like Horizon or whatever, so that when you're shopping for games, you can be like, oh, I know that's a certain quality or whatever. I think it's slightly funny, but whatever.
Do they have Sackboy? Is Sackboy in it?
I think he might be, actually. I can't quite remember, but it wouldn't surprise me because it's got quite a lot of faces in it. And then as of 5 o'clock, which is 20 minutes ago, Summer Games Fest, which is something run by Jeff Keighley, who runs the Game Awards, is sort of replacing E3 this year. And the first thing happened about 26 minutes ago, which was a reveal for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered. It's remastered, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Now, it's not that big a deal. I've never played the games, but I do know that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is considered to be one of the best PlayStation games. It's just the most fun PlayStation game, apparently. So I know some people are going to go crazy, but apparently there's going to be a much bigger showcase event of a variety of different things happening tomorrow, I think at 4 o'clock in the UK time. That's tomorrow being Wednesday, 13th of May.
They're going to remaster Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5.
That's going
to. It's just 5.
No, they're going to remaster 7, which hasn't come out yet, and then it's just going to be it's from the ground up remaster. But yeah, I'm excited to have that sort of replace E3 in a way. It's been good. Xbox did a weird event thing last week where they announced a few things, but it was kind of a flop because it was all just, I don't know, it was really awkward. It was just like a load of old, bold men talking about how hype Madden looks, and it was just a bit bad. Anyway, that's all I've got for quick news. The emphasis is meant to be on the quick, so we'll stop there. And so before we get into the individual albums, should we just talk a little bit about our general personal music tastes and also like our introduction with Kendrick and his discography? Sam, if you want to start.
So as you said at the start, big Kendrick fan. Also, Kanye West is also what I really, really love. Although Jesus is King, block that out because I was not happy. Like, just play your old stuff, please. And then, yeah, Tyler the Creator. Like recently, he's definitely been my favorite artist because I've been listening to stuff that isn't even released on like Spotify and that, and like because like what the fuck right now on YouTube, banger, like, and then also all the old future stuff, and then yeah, like, and then I came across James Gunn's like big playlist that he has for stuff that he uses as inspiration for stuff that he might have put in the Guardians movies and stuff that he might put in Guardians 3. A lot of funky tunes on there.
Cool. You had a bit of a stutter there. I think if we get one more, then we will turn you to an audio only boy. And what was your sort of introduction to Kendrick Lamar?
It was the first song I listened to was I, but the single version.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, and then that led me to listen to a Pimp Butterfly. This is probably in like 2017 something. And like I didn't, and then I listened to Damn and like Humble, DNA and stuff because they were the popular hits at the time. Like it was massive. So, and then I didn't really listen to Damn until early 2018 as a full album. Didn't listen to Kid Mad City until 2018, although I knew about Backstreet Freestyle and Swim Pools. And so, yeah, I didn't listen to Good Kid, Mad City until like, mid 2018, I guess. And then, yeah, and Pimp the Butterfly I listened to in 2017. Like, loved it straight away because it's just. Yeah,
we'll get to that.
Just funky.
We'll get to that. And George, how would you describe your sort of personal music taste and your introduction to Kendrick's music?
I describe it as ADHD. It's very all over the place. You know, I have this one big playlist which is like 69 hours long. That's no joke. It's
wow.
just I press shuffle. Yeah, I press shuffle and I just see what happens. You know, at the moment, obviously I'm listening to a lot of Kendrick, but I found this new guy called FJW or something like that, or FK. No, it's FKW, and he just makes really nice music. I like Earl Sweatshirt a lot. I listen to his stuff frequently, and I also like the Beatles. I'm just trying to keep it easy. You know, I'm not listening to much, but I am now. But before 2 weeks ago, I wasn't really listening to much experimental, challenging music. I was just sort of stuff I know and stuff I like to listen to. So yeah.
So you're saying that within the last 2 weeks, you've greatly expanded your discographies, your taste.
Well, yeah. Well, when it comes to experimental hip hop, it's become a lot broader. Yeah. My first Kendrick experience was Humble. I just heard that somewhere, probably, I don't know. Everyone's heard Humble, you know. And I thought, oh, this is nice. I like the sandwich bit. And then, you talked about Kendrick a lot. You just talk about him a lot. He's part of your vernacular and how you converse. You talk about Kendrick and Earl. to me. And then I think I might have told you I listened to Damn, or you told me to listen to Damn, one or the other. And then you said, "Oh, that's a good idea for a podcast. We should talk about Kendrick."
And here we
listen
are.
to, and here we are.
Yeah.
Listen to Good Kid, Mad City, and also To Pimp a Butterfly. So I heard Damn first. Thought, hey, that's pretty good. I thought, damn, boy's got talent. Then I listened to Good Kid, Mad City. Then I listened to Pimp a Butterfly. So yeah, that's my Kendrick experience.
You're somewhat educated now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm a massive hip hop fan. For people who don't know, most of my vinyls that I've got here are rap albums. I'm very into MF Doom. I also love Sweatshirt. But I'm also very much into Alt J, and I like old jazz as well. I love John Coltrane and Miles Davis. Um, and I also quite like ethereal like folk music and shit. I'm really into Jadoo Heart, which are these sort of British duo who do what they describe as like future folk, but it's kind of like ethereal, creepy forest folk music. It's great. I love it. It's very catchy. But yeah, I remember seeing a review for To Pimp a Butterfly when it came out, and so that would have been 2015, and I just remember thinking, oh wow, that sounds like a really really high review, and I wasn't really into rap at the time, or I wouldn't said I was. I was very into Rizzle Kicks, but I wouldn't have said I was into American hip hop. And so I remember listening to Pimp a Butterfly, or trying to. And I think I listened to the first 3 songs over and over again because I would sort of listen to it and I'd be like, oh, that was interesting. I'll give that another go. So I remember listening to Wesley's Theory for free, and then King Kunta over and over and over again, and then I remember just stopping, and I never carried on with the album, and that was kind of the extent of it. And then I remember when Damn came out, I listened to the whole thing very quick. Like I just gave it a quick listen while I was doing something else, and I remember liking Element, and that was it. And like I'd never picked up on anything else. And then maybe a year later, I don't know what happened. I just got way back into trying to give Tim Butterfly another go, and I did. And then I gave Damn a proper go, and I liked it. And then I remember listening to all the Good Kid, Mad City, and then being surprised at how many of the songs I actually knew from like I don't know, radio, or from where I'd heard it roundabout and never really associated with Kendrick. But I saw him live at the beginning of 2018 at the O2 Arena. It was a very hype event. Even though I was very far away, as soon as he came on stage, I stood up, I screamed, and I spent the entire concert reciting every single lyric. It was a good time. The weird thing that did happen, though, that I'm still never really able to let go of, is he did a part where he like said each of his album names going back to like his first ever EP, and then like waited for applause, and he just totally missed To Pimp a Butterfly. So he just went from Good Kid, Mad City to Damn, and I don't think it was an accident. I think it was like a statement. Maybe he's not proud of it or something. But I was really weirded out by that because I was like, okay, it was really weird. He said every single album or project he'd worked on, wait for the applause. Then he said Good Kid, Mad City. Then he said, and to where we are now with Damn. And I was like, there's been 2 big releases between them, buddy. You sort of missed a few. But yeah. So I saw him live, and that's pretty much my experience with him. I've got Good Kid, Mad City and Swim Butterfly on vinyl. I'm a big fan in those respects. Enough to buy them physically, and it was quite a joy listening to them again, all the way through as a proper listening experience. I just sort of sat down and listened. So, in the first of our Kendrick trilogy discussion, shall we get into talking about Good Kid, Mad City? So I've got a little write up which I've got from Wikipedia, of course. I just compiled a few parts from Wikipedia into a little statement which introduces Good Kid, Mad City quite well. So I will read it out, and then we will talk about it. Good Kid, Mad City 2012 is the second studio album by Kendrick Lamar. It debuted at number 2 on the US Billboard 200, selling 242,000 copies in its first week, earning the highest first-week hip-hop album sales of 2012 from a male artist, along with the best-selling debut from a male artist of the year. It became Lamar's first album to enter the UK albums chart, peaking at number 16. Good Kid, Mad City was also met with widespread critical acclaim. And this is quite a nice statement that I found, so I thought I'd include it. In the opinion of AllMusic editor David Jeffries, the album was some kind of elevated gangster rap. He wrote of its subject matter. Besides, of all the great ideas and life, this journey through the concrete jungle of Compton is worth taking because of the artistic richness, plus the attraction of a whip-smart rapper flying high during his rookie season. Any hesitation about the horror of it all is quickly wiped away by Kendrick's mix of true talk, open heart, open mind, and extended hand. Add it all up and subtract the hype, and this is still and this one is still potent enough to rise to the top of the pile. Good Kid, Mad City. Sam, re-listening to this album for you, how was it?
It was still good. Like, I think, because no, the start of the album like has grown on me a lot more than it used to. Like, because I think when I first listened to it, I kind of gravitated towards the end of it where there's Mad City and Swim Pools, which are the ones that I knew from the radio and whatever. I mean, GTA was probably where, like, I heard Swim Pools and stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's on the radio stations on there. And then, yeah, so, but the early tracks, I really liked the first one, like, because it's just him talking about meeting a girl and then just seeing a bunch of gangbangers instead. Like, and then also there's Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, which I vibe with a lot more than I used to. Yeah, and then Backstreet Freestyle is my favorite song off the album. Like, probably one of my favorite Kendrick songs. Like, I mean, it was when we saw Tyler, and like it came on in when Taco was doing his hype, and like I just remember like both of us just lost it. Like, even though it wasn't Kendrick there.
No, it's a great track to get hyped to.
Yeah.
George, listening to this for the first time, how was it in comparison? Not necessarily in comparison to Damn, but you know, this is basically the first experience of most of this for you.
I thought, well, it was surprisingly funny. That was one of my first takes. Like, because Damn's not really funny. Damn's just sort of him, you know, he's rapping and he's doing his thing. But like, you get all these little skits and anecdotes of like his parents having an argument and like, dominoes.
Yeah.
It's just, I thought it was funny, and then like it's also balancing this like really funny tone with also like the actual scary hood bits.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really an interesting dichotomy, because you don't really hear that. You heard it on like Kanye's early stuff. You know, skits was a big thing, but these ones were actually funny. You know, I'm not saying that the Kanye ones weren't like terribly unfunny, but these ones actually made me chuckle, and they still do. Like, I'll be out walking and listening to Good Kid, Mad City, and I'm laughing even though I've heard the joke like 6 times. You know?
There is a comedy to the album, and I think it's because, you know, it's the idea of it, and if on the version of the album I've got, and I think it's on all of them, but it does say on the front a short film by Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
I think it comes from, you know, what some of those reviews are saying is about, it's meant to be quite an honest short film of Compton. And it does. I remember listening to it for the first time and really feeling that idea of a short film, and it felt like a narrative that was developing, and it felt like that aesthetic of a short film, and like the sort of student level, like personal personality to it. And I think that comedy just comes from him trying to represent Compton in the most honest way he can, which is that there's a lot of downsides to it. There's a lot of upsides to it, but also like life is funny occasionally. Like, it's not all doom and gloom.
Otherwise, no one would be there.
Yeah, and it's obviously about him being a teenager, which is a very brash time, very sex-focused time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. In terms of growing on you, Sam? Do you think it's your opinion of the album's changed at all since it came out, or since you first listened to it?
It's always, I always separate it almost from, well, I don't separate it, but it's like a prelude to Pimp a Butterfly, because it's Kendrick talking about his own experience in Compton growing up. Like, it's very personal, whereas Pimp a Butterfly is more about society, but Pimp a Butterfly is about him. So, yeah, it's always been more personal. Like, yeah, I wouldn't really say like my general view of it has changed. It's just, yeah, more recently I have appreciated the start of the album more.
I think for me, especially giving it a re-listen, I found a lot of I say aesthetics, but sort of the sort of style of the backing tracks and the style of the beats for a lot of it. It's not necessarily that level of uniqueness that even Damn shows off, and To Pimp a Butterfly, obviously, because it does definitely sound like Compton rap. And all the way through, it's Compton rap. It's just Compton rap with Kendrick on it, and I don't think that's necessarily a problem, because it's almost like it obviously is, especially towards the end with the tracks like Compton with Dr. Dre. It's a celebration of Compton, of that culture, of hip hop, really, in LA. And whilst like I completely am on board with what he's doing there, I don't know whether I enjoy that as much as the other two albums, and especially how much more unique all of the sounds become on Pimp a Butterfly. And on my listen through on this one, re-listening to it, I actually sat with lyrics open for most of the songs and just sort of tried to sit down with the lyricism of it. And I was rewinding it quite a bit, or re-listening to some songs quite a bit. But yeah, in terms of aesthetics, it's very good at creating like a mental image, like even down to like color grading and stuff. If you just look at what the album is given, and it is a very visual album. It sounds weird to say, but it's the description that he uses for everything, and especially on some of the songs. I can't remember which one it is exactly. I think it's the Art of Peer Pressure. And he's talking about them getting away from robbing Nintendos or some shit. And it just creates such a great narrative through through a piece of music that you can actually follow and comprehend.
I think what I found about the album is it's probably less experimental than, you know, To Pimp a Butterfly and Damn, because he probably was trying to get his foot in the door, you know, because he hadn't made it yet. So while it's not necessarily like a safe bet, it's definitely more commercial than his other two records.
Because, I don't know if I'd say it's commercial, because I think Damn is probably his most commercial record out of everything he's made.
But maybe it's like.
But I think you are right in terms of playing it safe. I think he was trying to make a Compton rap album which he knew would sell, at least in Compton.
Yeah, there was less sort of style. He more tried to get his style through the story he was telling in the lyrics rather than the actual like music.
Yeah. And also all of his storytelling and sort of characters that he inhabits are sort of spoken about in the third person, or he's not really embodying them as a character. He's kind of just using his lyricism and his words to portray that. Whereas I think in the later albums, he actually seems to sort of emote with the songs, and he seems to sort of he's sort of grown into like having emotions with lyricism and with the storytelling that he's trying to convey. What are some of your personal favorites on the albums, guys, in terms of tracks? Personally, I think all of the tracks with Dr. Dre sound fucking amazing. And I think Compton, as to be honest, the proper finale of the album. I don't know which version you listened to, George, but the deluxe edition has a few extra tracks, but the actual end of the original album is the track Compton with Dr. Dre, which I still think is such a fantastic fucking ending. And the music that he's put on, the beat that Dre has obviously put together for that track is just phenomenal. Obviously, I love Backseat Freestyle. Money Trees is fantastic. Poetic Justice is fantastic. In fact, I will say, if I was, there's not many songs I would skip. I think the only one I would ever skip if I was re-listening is Sing About Me, I'm Dying First. Not because I don't love it, because I think it's fantastic, but just because of the sheer length of it. I'm just not in the mood for 12 to 13.
12 minutes long.
Yeah, 12 minutes of a full go. But what's some of your guys' favourites?
well, Backstreet Freestyle is just forever going to be my favourite on it, and then like A Good Kid, like because I think that was the first song that I listened to properly on it. Because like when I add stuff to my playlists, it was the first Good Kid, Mad City song that I saved to my personal playlists. Like I just love it, and then Swimming Pool as I went to university, like actually comes on in clubs now and then, and so like I'm always able to.
That's a weird choice though, because the song is about being very against alcoholism.
Yeah, but I suppose if you're in a university environment and just hearing a song saying drink over and over again, because there is a drinking game that people do to the song where every time he says drink, people do a shot.
Very inventive.
Yeah. Yes. I was probably missing the message somewhat of the song.
Yeah. What are some of your favourites, George?
I'm struggling to pick out because I just listened to it in one go. I've got my other phone charging, so I'll be able to pick out singles more coherently next time.
That's all right.
I mean, obviously the Backstreet Freestyle is really good. I think it's just very, like you say, hype. It gets you into it. I did like Good Kid and Bad City. They were probably two standouts. I don't know. There was a few duds that I didn't save. I can't remember what they were, but I just think out of all of the albums I listened to, I saved the most songs out of this one because I just sort of liked it almost sounded like one long song in the way that they're all
linked. Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially the way that
diversity.
Yeah, especially the way that the skits and the bits in between sort of link them together narratively.
Yeah.
And it is that again, that idea of it being a short film. It does feel like one long sort of piece that you can
show almost.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting album. I think it's still going to stand the test of time. I don't think it's my favorite Kendrick album, and I don't think that it's. I don't think that it actually has now that we can see the breadth of what Kendrick's ability is. I don't think it has that much in terms of uniqueness. It's a very, very, very good narrative, lyrical Compton rap album, but in terms of like what I go to Kendrick for, it's not the main things on this album. There are some bangers, and there's some really great storytelling, but I think it's lacking a little bit of that bit of flavor, and also personality, but also like there's a history in this album of just like Compton rap, whereas the history that's sort of expressed into Butterfly, which we'll get onto in a second, it's such a rich. I keep doing this movement, but that's what it feels like. It's like such a rich Black American history throughout the entire thing that goes much deeper than just Compton rap, and I think that's why that album always stands up for a lot of people commercially. Is there any other points that people want to make about Good Kid, Mad City? We've gone very quickly through this album. We just had a brief chat about it, but
I got one. Out of the three albums I did listen to, this is probably the easiest one to re-listen to. I found that I could sort of, I'd pick up the lyrics easier, if that makes sense, and I sort of, as the song ended, I'd hear, oh, this is now this song coming up, and it does feel maybe his most, it's probably his easiest to listen to in like end to end, I'd say, because there's not very, with To Pimp a Butterfly, you've got very dense, lyrics and very like a very tonally all over the place from a music standpoint, whereas this one's all very sort of straight along the line, and it just makes it. I mean, they're all fun to listen to, right? But this one's just, I don't know. I could just listen to it as I'm walking, and I don't have to. It's like I can think about it, but it's not going to be like demanding all of my attention. I can just sort of pick out bits as I'm going. I think out of the three, it's probably the easiest one to just have in the background, but still enjoy it, still appreciate it, maybe.
And even though it is, I sort of get what you mean as well, because even though it is talking about A lot of the downsides of living in Compton and the murder and the constant gang rivalry. It does always handle everything with a little bit of levity and comedy, as you said, which just sort of keeps it from feeling so much like a heavy burden of an album. Sam, are there any other points you want to make about Good Kid, Mad City?
No, not really. Just like I was gonna say, the bonus track now or never.
Yeah,
like is very
fantastic.
Good.
Yeah, actually, every single song on the album that Dr. Dre had anything to do with, and obviously Now or Never, is just amazing. The Recipe is also another explosive, great song that just really carries it. But yeah, some of the word, it's just Compton as a final song is just such an explode. It always feels so different to what you're getting in the lead up to that song that it's kind of annoying. But yeah, and also I'm just thinking to myself now that I'm looking back through the track listing. Talk about the idea of it being a narrative that seems to be one story. It's a bit weird because towards like maybe the last two tracks, it kind of loses that a little bit. Like it's still the same thing. It still feels like that's a finale to the album, but it doesn't feel like it's the same album necessarily as much as it feels like a couple of more songs. Do you know what I mean? Right. It still has those links of the skits and the parts, but Compton feels quite, for me anyway, I might be completely wrong. It feels quite thematically different to the rest of the music, or quite a lot more celebratory. It's a lot less critical. It's a lot less of like a snide look at things. But anyway, Good Kid, Mad City is a great album, which I'm sure I will listen to many times over and over again in the future. But Good Kid, Mad City is Kendrick being a very, very young man, being a teenager, being an idiot, being foolish, being influenced by others. Imagine if your imagine if your first blunt had you foaming at the mouth. Is a line that has stuck with me for a long time, which explains to me a lot why Kendrick really doesn't partake in stuff like that.
I was just thinking, maybe perhaps the reason it is as like consistent throughout the album is because like when you are young, you don't really have much of a personality. You're not as like fully dimensional yet, three-dimensional yet, and he's sort of like doing all these first experiences, like finding a girl, getting jumped, all that kind of thing. It's just him sort of like taking the world in from a young perspective without sort of having the intellectual thoughts he would have in like his later track. Well, they are obviously intellectual thoughts, but like the more he has like a deeper understanding of things, and it's like it's a young man's perspective rather than this like adult, if that makes sense.
I think the thing is as well that Section 80, which was the one he released before this, which I do like as well, but that was again felt more like a mixtape to me. And then this felt like him realizing that he could possibly make rap music more than what rap music was considered to be. And then when he realizes on this one and the commercial and critical success of this album, I think that's what really opened it up for him as an artist to realize, oh shit, I can experiment. I can like do what I want to do because people are responding to it. So yeah, what I was leading on to is this is definitely an album of Kendrick as a young man, as a teenager. Whereas this next album we're talking about definitely feels like Kendrick Lamar as a grown-up black man who is pissed off, who is upset, but who is very much in love with himself. I will introduce To Pimp a Butterfly. To Pimp a Butterfly, 2015, is the third studio album by Kendrick Lamar. It debuted at number 1 on the US Billboard 200, selling 363,000 copies in its first week. The album received widespread critical acclaim. Many critics praised it for its musical scope and social relevance of Lamar's lyrics. It was ranked as the best album of 2015 by many publications, including Rolling Stone, Billboard, and Pitchfork. It was also ranked by many publications as one of the best albums of the 2010s as a decade, with The Independent placing it at its first. The album was nominated for Album of the Year and Best Rap Album at the 58th Grammy Awards, winning the latter. By June 2017, the album had sold 1 million copies in the United States. By June 2017, did I say 2015? June 2017, the album had sold 1 million copies in the United States. To Pimp a Butterfly was also met with high critical acclaim as good community. Irish Times journalist Jim Carroll deemed it a record for the times we're in which Lamar transitioned from his past narratives about Compton to fierce but precise reflections on Black America. In Rolling Stone, Greg Tate deemed To Pimp a Butterfly a masterpiece of fiery outrage, deep jazz, and ruthless self-critique. George, I am most interested to hear your thoughts on this after hearing the other two albums. What did you think of Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly?
Well, initially, now this is going to shock you, Ellis, I was disappointed.
Oh, wow.
Initially, I was disappointed. I'm going to, emphasize the initially.
Do a bit of Kendrick storytelling with this. Come on.
I'm not going to, I can't freestyle it. Give me a beat. No. Everyone has talked about To Pimp a Butterfly. Everyone sort of hails it as this, like, I don't know, one of the best albums ever, maybe, that kind of thing. If you talk to a Kendrick fan, they're going to talk about To Pimp a Butterfly, and everyone has talked about it. So I had built it up in my mind as this, like, God tier album, something that would change my perception of the world, even. And I didn't quite get it to start with. It was just really dense, and I found myself sort of tuning out and just sort of listening to. I was still listening to it, but I wasn't listening to it. If you know what I mean, I guess it was probably just too much to start with. I was maybe because I first heard Damn, and then I heard Good Kid, and I was probably expecting this, easier to listen to album with good lyrics and a good beat and interesting. And then you get a song where he's like crying and drinking alcohol, and it's like, oh, this is intense. This is not what I thought I was signing up for. So initially, I had to stop about 2/3 in and just not listen to it. I put on the Beatles because I just wanted something like a warm blanket almost, because it was like getting thrown out into the rain in like a musical sense. And then I went back to it the day after, and then I went back to the day after, and every time I listened to it, I sort of got it a bit more. It was similar to my experience with Igor, the Tyler album, in a way. Not that they are similar from a music. Well, they are similar, but they're not similar, if you know what I mean. But like, it was just listening to this, and it was very different to the other stuff I had expected from them. It was very dense, and it was very like layered, and it was very different. All the songs were very different, and I got overwhelmed. But every time I went back to it, I got it a bit more, and I realized that this is very profound. It's very interesting, and it's very much worth that full concentration that it demands from you.
So now that you've had those listens, what is your overall opinion of the album?
I think it's great. I really enjoy it. I think I haven't fully got I haven't lined out my opinion because I can't yet. It's too much. But all the albums, it's such a good neo everything. It does like neo soul, neo funk, neo 90s rap. It does a bit of everything, and it does it all well, and it all blends together really well. And it's like he's playing like a really vigorous game of tennis, and like it goes from one idea to the next, but it makes like tonal sense. It's not like he's just throwing everything at the wall. Everything's like, it's like he's throwing it intentionally, and it's hitting the dartboard. I'm going to change my analogy to darts now, because tennis didn't quite work. It's like he's playing a very intense game of darts. He's got like 50 darts, and he's hitting the bullseye every single time. And every time it's like, it's getting more and more cramped, and you don't think he's going to do it. And then something happens, and you're like, sneeze as he throws the dart, but it hits the triple 20 instead of the bullseye, and it's still like, it all hits the mark, even if you don't think it will. So it's definitely a grower. And I think the more I listen to it, the better it's going to get, I think.
Sam, for you, how has To Pimp a Butterfly grown on you since your first sort of exposure to it?
It's the thing where like you listen to it more, and each time you listen, you might find out something new or like have a new interpretation of a certain lyric or something like that. Like sort of album is, because it is so deep and rich with loads of references, the samples as well, everything. Like you can just notice a sample, go, oh, I didn't like hear that before, or realise it was like a sample, and then like yeah, it's just you realise something new each time, and then also as a like jazz funk soul fan as well, it's like just everything coming together just so nicely. Like just
Yeah,
so
listening to this album, I actually listened to all 3 albums in one day for this podcast, which is a heavy task. But I have to Pimp Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City on vinyl. So I played Good Kid, Mad City, and I sort of finished it, and I was like, that was fun. I took a little break, and then obviously all the way through Good Kid, Mad City, I'd been sort of looking at the lyrics while I was going. And so I started Pimp Butterfly, and I had the lyrics up, and as soon as it starts hitting in with those initial lyrics of every African American is a star, I felt like I was listening to it not necessarily for the first time again, but it felt like a treat to listen to in like the most pretentious way possible. But I turned off my iPad with the lyrics on it, and I just sat there and I listened to the whole album without needing to look at the lyrics, and I wasn't necessarily blown away or anything, because I already had that experience a while back. But I just felt in awe of what a great piece of work this individual album is, and I think it trades in that idea of a singular story narrative that Good Kid, Mad City has, a very personal narrative, and it trades it in for like an epic, if anything. It feels like an epic novel about America, about blackness in America. And there's so many small lyrics here and there which have so much history behind, so much going on within just 1 or 2 lines that are repeated throughout the whole album. It is incredibly dense, as you said, George, and but also like it has All Right, which is like an anthem. Like it feels like it is a black anthem, but it's such a fantastic song, and I'd still consider it to probably be my favorite Kendrick song. And it's just slapped in the middle of this beautiful jazz funk album, but lots of people just know it on its own. And also, I found myself in comparison to Good Kid, Mad City, just sat there, in love with the aesthetics of it, in love with the aesthetics of all of the bass grooves that they've got going on, and like the like I don't know how to describe it, but like you feel like you're in jelly, you're in a jelly of funk, you're in a trifle of funk and soul. And it's such a rich experience, and it was just such a joy to listen to again. And I think also what you hear on this album is Kendrick start to do what I was talking about, where he starts to embody characters, and on every single track, he's kind of playing a character. He's kind of being an actor. He's pushing a character and a voice that always feels distinct and not necessarily consistently different, but it always feels like Kendrick. And when you hear You for the first time, I was fucking blown away. You is just like it's such a weird a weird song for a Compton rapper to make, but it's perfect in my opinion. It's a song about tragedy, about addiction, about a lot of things. You've both heard it, but it's the way that he embodies it with his voice, and he plays a character with just his voice, and especially when that second beat kicks in, the sample that he's got there, which is the weird like ominous vocals, which then becomes a rap beat, and it's catchy, but it's also haunting, and it's uncomfortable, and it's pretty amazing. Um, and yeah, I think in Good Kid, Mad City, all of that was sort of represented just through lyrics, and he was trying to throw that away with just what he was saying, with the actual writing. Whereas in this, it does definitely feel like he's the writer, he's the director, and he's the actor. It feels like, a good version of The Room, like
Yeah.
he's got complete creative control, and he's completely in his element. And I would say on this one, you know, as much as I do enjoy Good Kid, Mad City, if I just want to listen to it, there are songs that I'd skip. But To Pimp a Butterfly is one of the only albums in my life that there probably isn't a single song that I would want to skip if I was sitting down to listen to this, because every single song is unique in its own way, has its own elements that add into this grander novel. It feels like, you know, I think it's a nice analogy. If Good Kid, Mad City was a short film, this feels like a massive trilogy of novels kind of level of thing. You know, it feels like a Lord of the Rings level concept album. And yeah, there's
It's
not.
like he's doing as much in one song on Butterfly that he is in like the whole Good Kid, Mad City album.
Yeah,
You know, they all feel like a mini album in their own right.
and I'm sure people who you know, have been around for a while don't need to come to this podcast just to hear people talk about how great To Pimp a Butterfly is. But yeah, Sam, do you have any other points to just add on to what I've said?
Yeah, I was going to say, because you're talking about like Kendrick's vocals, and like that is one of the, well, for me, it's probably the strongest point on the whole of his whole album, because like it's just his range, like you wouldn't expect it from a rapper really. So like you get him basically crying on You, and then on Institutionalized, I think it's that one where he's doing the old woman voice, like, and then
Don't
also
change, yeah.
yeah, and then Black of the Berry's just
Oh my god,
angry.
Black of the Berry. It feels like anger. It feels like hate, and it feels like it's such a. And he does it all with his voice. He does it all with the voice and a beat, and it conveys so much and so much history and so much complex emotion that you can't even really say with lyrics. I'm just wanking Kendrick off now, really. But it is. I think I just realized listening back through it how much I love the album, because I hadn't listened to it all the way through in a few years, and I think in my head it was just like, oh yeah, it's a really good album. But listening to it and just giving it the time and respect that I think it deserves, I was sort of amazed by just what a great piece of work it is. George, do you even though you know you find it harder to, it's more of a dense thing for you to listen to, do you still think you'll come back to it as much as you come back to the other albums or the other tracks?
Yes, definitely. I just think there's so much to unpack, and I've, you know, only just scratched the surface. Like the whole Tupac thing at the end, it's unreal. It's unreal.
I've heard it like 10 times, and it gave me chills again listening to it this time around.
And like,
yeah,
it's so
I just can't. Sorry, I just can't imagine being there like 2015, like being like, okay, this is a new Kendrick album, getting to the end of it, and then being like, what is this? And
being Tupac. Yeah,
it's just super creative. And it's like
what was interesting is that one of the things that annoys me about streaming it is if you listen to the last track, normally as soon as the album finishes, they'll try and put another Kendrick song on. And like, cause Spotify or whatever, they just when an album finishes, they try and queue up another Kendrick song. Listening to it on vinyl and having that ending bit where he's like, pack, and then it just goes silent and it's just dead, and there's no like, and it's just like, oh fuck. It feels like such a hopeful album in parts, but also that ending has a lot going on. And I don't know about you guys, but Mortal Man is such a fantastic track, and maybe the Michael Jackson references haven't aged as well as we'd all like, but the concept behind it, and also just that finale with that poem and the swelling of the jazz music before the final just cut of silence, it does give me chills still. And just sitting there, for me, it always feels like Kendrick is calling out for answers, and he's realizing that he's now the person who is that idol for the Compton community. He is that figure of what Pac was. He is that person who has to strive to get out of the of Compton, to rise out of the ghetto, to rise out of the stereotypes of blackness and whatever that means. I think context wise, it's an interesting album to have come out when it did. I think it was just before sort of Black Lives Matter movements and things were starting to come about, and a lot of police brutality stuff was becoming a lot more televised and a lot more common knowledge. It just feels like such a wonderful piece. And also, I was staring at the album cover a lot, and I never realized that Kendrick's actually on the album cover. I never spotted him before.
Yeah.
Like,
The
he's
thing
like
is that, like, the original album cover for Good Kid, Mad City, not the deluxe one where it's just a car. Like Good Kid, Mad City, it's Kendrick
Yeah.
as a baby being
Yeah.
held, and then in that it's Kendrick holding the baby.
yes.
So like, just on the album cover, it's like the changing of the gun.
Well, I think what's interesting is that the guy who designed the album covers for Good Kid, Mad City and Damn and T-Pab also did Damn, and it's like Damn. He was the Damn is a very much, to me anyway. It feels like a more straightforward album cover, but it's interesting that you went from these two to straight to Damn, which is a black hole. And I think it's interesting as well that for this one, it feels like a much less commercial album than Good Kid, Mad City. There's no bonus tracks. There's no deluxe edition. There's no collector's edition. It's just Good Kid, Mad City. That's what you get. And then if you want to include Untitled, Unmastered, it's its own project, which I don't know if you listened to yet, George.
No.
It's basically all of the songs that were made for Pimp Butterfly that weren't included. And it's its own album that doesn't have proper titles and doesn't have proper mastering on it. But
it's like a demo tape almost.
Basically, yeah, it's a bonus track tape that hasn't been worked on, and it is just such. Even the tracks on that are fantastic, but it's interesting to me that this feels like such a perfected body of work, such an uncommercial product, such a piece of art. You know, I'm talking in completely pretentious terms now, but it feels like such a piece of art over the other albums. There is no collector's edition. There's nothing. It's just to Pimp a Butterfly. That's what you buy. That's what you get. Regardless of the way you listen to it, that's all you're getting.
There's no DLC.
There's no microtransactions. You can't unlock a new skin for Kendrick. You can't unlock a Shireen skin.
Yeah. There's no camos. There's no camos.
No, there's no Fortnite dances here. Sam, do you think we talked about how it grew on you, but do you think you view it differently to when you first heard it?
Definitely, because I think because it's the first Kendrick I listened to, like I heard the single, and I was like, oh, he's a better rapper than everyone else. But I still didn't realise what he was, I guess, like the sort of thing that he did.
Interesting thing about as well is that I don't know if you know this, George, but the single of that was released, I don't know if you've heard it, is a very different song to the that's actually on the album.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a more produced, it's a higher I guess higher audio quality. It's a more commercial version of the song, and then obviously the version of the album is a live performance of that song, which feels a lot more raw. And I think for a lot of people, I don't know about you, Sam, but when you listen to it, it must have been somewhat of a surprise having this weird new version of in your ears. I don't know if he can hear me. He seems to be having a fuzzy time.
What I found interesting about it is like he's trying to talk to a crowd, and it feels almost futile, like because they get angry, and it's like it almost goes back to that the Drank song. You know, he's trying to convey this message, but it's not getting through. They're just hearing sort of, you know, the more commercial aspects of it, and it's frustrating. And it's like, what can I do? You put me on this pedestal as like the new Tupac, but you're not actually listening to what I'm trying to say. You're just sort of expecting me to do this other thing, if that makes sense. And
it's interesting because he did a Grammy performance after Damn came out, where I think it was a combination of DNA and XXX. And at the end of it, he sort of stands and looks at the audience, and obviously all of the white members of the audience stood up clapping and like laughing, and you see every black guy in the room is just sat there like with stern face, not applauding, and he's looking like he's not on stage looking happy. And it was just like, oh fuck, there's a disconnect here, and he obviously knows it. There's a disconnect between the audio and the sound of what he's making, and necessarily what people are getting out of it. But I think enough people do it. I think though, you know, that what I'm saying about it feels like a less commercial album, I think might be part of the reason why
I don't know. For me, he seemed ashamed of it when I went to see him live. He seemed like he didn't want to talk about it, or it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Whereas to me, it's one of the best albums ever made, or one of my favorite albums of all time. But for him, maybe it just wasn't a commercial. I think I know it was a commercial failure, or it didn't. Even though it sold a lot of copies, it just wasn't the big, massive hitter that it should have been, or maybe there was too much time and money spent on it.
It's almost like he put a big gamble on this sort of ideology in this album, and it, to him, didn't pay off. Like he wanted it to be this cornerstone of a new culture that he was trying to make, and it didn't quite hit the mark. And he feels like, like maybe ashamed of it because he put all this, you can really tell that he's giving it his all in every track. There isn't
really
like
is.
a wasted line.
I wish I could have seen that tour he did though when Super Butterfly came out. He only did it around America, I think, but he toured with a live jazz album, and just did songs off of this album. And he toured with some of the best jazz musicians in New York and stuff. And I'm just like, oh my god, what I'd give to see that. Sam, I don't know if your camera cut out a little bit, but what I was saying was you having heard "I" for the first time as a single, was it a big what the fuck moment when you listened to it on the album?
It wasn't like a what the fuck moment. It was just like, oh, this is interesting, and like it's definitely it's more raw, more emotional, like, and then where he just cuts off in the third verse and just goes on a massive rant and then freestyles a bit, like that's one of the tracks which has grown on me a lot. Because I think I listened to the like more commercial single like more before I listened to the album track. It did take me a while to. I think now I do like the album track more, but initially I was like, "This is."
They are different. Yeah, they are different. But yeah, I think in summary, I don't know if anyone else has any other points, but for me, To Pimp a Butterfly just feels like this grand commentary with such an amazing aesthetic of just a rich history of all types of black culture conveyed through things that you can't even really put a name to, just a feeling of history, of soul, of funk, of all of these different elements, but still it feels quintessentially like its own. Quintessentially, that's the wrong word. It feels uniquely like its own piece, its own piece of art. Even within what you consider jazz rap, it feels like its own distinct.
It's like a culmination of everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of it's all sort of been leading to Pimp Butterfly.
And honestly, that must have been why it was so hard to try and make a follow-up to another album on top of it. But any other points from either of you before we move on to Dan?
I've got a few.
Go ahead.
I think For Free is an interesting track on the album. This is funny. As I was listening to it, I go, "Oh, is this? He's still going to do this like comedic element to it. This whole, it's just a funny like the way his lyrics are very jovial, like the way he's saying it. Sorry, and then it quickly cuts, and I was like, oh, it was a tonal shift, and maybe he was sort of like preparing the audience initially for something like A Good Kid, because it's it's funny and it's. I mean, Wesley's theory obviously isn't. It's different. It's all anyway. I was just thinking about this just now, as you can tell, but I found that to be a very interesting sort of track in the early stages of the album, because I guess it might have been why I was initially turned off, because I sort of clicked in my mind, oh, this is going to be another funny yet insightful romp, but it then kind of hits you with the more gut-punching songs, and yeah, I just found that track interesting. I also found the poem interesting, and how sort of every line of that poem feeds into the next song.
Almost. Yeah, and how it culminates in the end as well. It's perfect.
It's just really cool. Those are my two sort of points, I think. I just found For Free interesting because it's different. I don't know. You have the trumpet. I think it's a trumpet at the start, and then it's funny. Yeah, as you can tell, that's a really intellectual point. It's trumpet funny.
It's trumpet funny. Sam, do you have any other points quickly about Pimp a Butterfly?
Well, I was just going to say, like, with the poem that's going throughout, and then obviously like I was going to say like These Wolves, like just the way that he performs it and everything like that, it is its own poem basically. Like, These Wolves is probably my second favorite song on it, because it's just like it's probably after You, it's probably the most, well, not personal to Kendrick because it's about woman, but like it's very relatable for a lot of people in situations, and it's just the way he performed. It's just like a big poem, and it's great.
You probably know this, but it was one of the name before Butterfly was To Pimp a Caterpillar.
Yeah,
and that, like I think that's
Tupac.
I'm glad he didn't do that. I'm glad I'm glad the Tupac twist was sort of withheld.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if it's To Pimp a Caterpillar, it just sort of it makes the nuances less nuanced. Basically, it makes it more obvious as like this is what one of the overlying themes is. But To Pimp a Butterfly, it's got more it's more interesting, and it makes the album more. You have to again, you have to think about it to sort of see these like links that he's making, and I feel like To Pimp a Caterpillar would have been a bit on the nose, so I'm glad he changed it to Butterfly.
Yeah, there was some interview he did where like he was saying like I was going to call it To Pimp a Caterpillar, but then he was just like, wait a minute, caterpillars are ugly. Why am I doing that?
Yeah.
Intellectual big brain thinking from Kendrick Lamar.
Caterpillars are ugly. Funny trumpet.
That should have been the title. But yes, I think, especially in terms of the bigger music reviewers, so your Needle Drops, your Pitchforks, this was considered pretty much a masterpiece.
Yeah, he gave it. Anthony gave it a 10.
Yes, he did. And then obviously, 2 years later, Kendrick comes back trying to follow that up with a very different album, known only as Damn. Damn is the fourth and most recent studio album from Kendrick Lamar. It received widespread critical acclaim and topped the charts in the United States, with 603,000 album equivalent units sold in its first week. So I think that's taken into account because more people were streaming by then. And Canada, whilst reaching number 2 in Australia, Belgium, Denmark, Ireland, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. It was supported by 3 official singles, Humble, Loyalty, and Love, the first of which became Lamar's first number 1 single on the US Billboard Hit 100 as the lead artist. Damn was met with some mixed reviews. Andy Kellman of AllMusic stated that it contained some of Lamar's best writing and performances, revealing his evolving complexity and versatility as a soul-bearing lyricist and dynamic rapper, whilst A Harmony of Exclaim wrote that Damn is the first time in Lamar's career that he hasn't broken new ground, explored old themes in new ways, or exhibited sonic growth. Now, jumping into Damn and our discussion about it, I think I would have to agree with that. Talking about the growth between Section 80 and Good Kid, and then Good Kid and T-Pab, this doesn't necessarily feel like a growth upwards or a growth in terms of artistic development, but more of a sideways step from To the Butterfly into a different sounding direction, into a different world. It feels along the same lines as what he was trying to achieve at To the Butterfly for me, in terms of like a grand criticism of America, but it doesn't feel as grand. It doesn't feel as widespreading or as well thought out to me. George, this was pretty much your first introduction to Kendrick Lamar. So what are your thoughts coming away from that listen?
I really liked it the first time. I just found it very easy to grasp. I spoke to you about it. Sorry about that. I spoke to you about it after I listened to it, and then after I listened to Good Kid, and I said that I needed to re-listen to Good Kid, but I didn't necessarily need to re-listen to Damn. I think it's a very digestible piece of music. The themes aren't as hard to grasp as in Pimp a Butterfly, and I think it's probably just him easing off the pedal a little bit, not putting it all on the line, because it's all because the features are interesting as well, because he's got like U2 and Rihanna and people like that, very big names in the music industry, and it probably feels like him just sort of making an album, not for the sake of a purpose, just to make make this grand message, but to just make an album that's nice, that like he can just do. He doesn't have to, burn the candle at both ends to make this. It's just something that he's trying, but he's not trying beyond the point of like reason, if you get what I mean. It's very, it's just very not. Oh, I can't find the word. It's not bland. It's very good, obviously, because it's Kendrick, but it's not like
safe, maybe.
Yeah. It's a safe Kendrick album. That's the word.
Sam, do you? How was it listening to this for you again? How was it listening to Damn again?
It's definitely like my least favorite of the three. Like, I always feel like it was almost rushed out because it came out after the Trump election and Trump inauguration and stuff, and I feel like it was almost rushed out, like to try and still be in the same climate, like while that like angry climate about the Trump thing was still fresh. Like, I feel like he was trying to still be on that wave. Like, so I feel like, like some of the points he makes are valid, but it doesn't hit the spot as well as like Good Kid, Mad City and Pink Butterfly, like in terms of what he's trying to say. And also, it's just a much more conventional album rather than just like experimenting.
I think what's interesting as well is that Damn has 14 tracks on it, and Pimp Butterfly has 16. It's only a difference for 2 tracks, but to me, in my head, Damn feels significantly shorter, and it feels significantly smaller in every sort of aspect about it. I do actually like Damn a lot. I think that Blood as an intro is a really good tone setter, and I think the thing about this is color-wise, the redness of the word "damn" on the album, but also just the actual imagery that the album conjures. I don't know for you guys, but for me, it feels so dark and black compared to the other two, where it seems like it's going up and down, or there's color in certain moments and there's bleakness in others. But this feels so. I think it's the texturing and some of the production, some of the songs, especially on things like Fear and Lust and that kind of moody aesthetic. It all feels so dark to me, and it's not necessarily a problem, but it just feels like there's very little parts of levity or light from there. And I think he tried to do that with songs like Loyalty, with songs like Love, to try and bring it up so it was more of a mix. But what actually happens then for me is it becomes less of a consistent, less of a quality album. I'm just going to go through the track listing quickly. Blood is a great intro. DNA, one of the best songs I think Kendrick has ever made. It's a banger. It's fantastic. Lyrically, he's on top of his game in it. Yah is a chill track, still on the same thing, still socially conscious. Element, I think, is one of the best tracks on this album. I really wish it got as much attention as Humble did, because I think it's got the same appeal for me. Feel, of course, All in His Feelings. It's another track. It feels like in this opening half, he's kind of jumping up and down between hype and like, calm down, let's get a bit introspective. Loyalty, I don't like. Sam, what did you think of Loyalty?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. It's just a bit. It's just not anything new, because like on previous Kendrick Lamar albums, you listen to a song like, oh, this is new, whereas this, it was just like, oh, it's a song. Like, there's nothing, he's not saying anything on it. Like,
and also it doesn't tie into that darkness of what the imagery of the album conjures. It's kind of like it's like you're going in a straight line, and then with some of the songs, what keeps happening is you go bump, and then you try and jump back onto this, and then bump, you're doing something else quickly to try, and it doesn't really work. And then you come back with Pride, which is again another heavy, dark song which isn't necessarily. I'm not talking about thematically dark. It's just the way the sounds come across to me and the way it feels like such a burden of an album, like, carrying it. Pride leads into Humble, leads into Lust, like 3 great tracks back to back. And then it's like, if you led into XXX after that, you'd be consistent, you'd be thematically on point, you'd still be in the same like imagery and feeling of the album. But instead he goes, nah, let's go to Love, which makes no sense on this album. I'm sorry, you're allowed to talk about whatever you want, Kendrick, but it makes no sense, because up until this point, why is this a thing? These Walls works on To Pimp a Butterfly because of how grand it feels in every single aspect of Blackness, and also the way it still ties in with Blackness and Kendrick's characters. But on here, you've got Love, which I actually like as a song. I think it's a fun, it's quite a chill song. I think it's quite a relaxed, enjoyable love song, right?
Yeah,
but
it just does not work on the album.
What the fuck is it doing on this album? What the fuck is it doing on this album in reference to Love? Yeah. I like I said, I enjoy the track, but I do think it makes no sense on this album. And then afterwards you go into XXX, which I think might be like in my top 5 Kendrick songs of all time. I just love it so much, and I love the use of police sirens and the rap beat. I always love that in a rap beat anyway. But also how well Bono seems to work on this track. And like it works so well. And to be honest, it's more of a rock track when it gets to that point than it feels like a rap track. Fear is just quintessential Kendrick, and it's just like some of his best writing. And then we get to God, which I actually don't. I was like, God. It sounds bad. It actually sounds bad to me. And I understand that a lot of this album is him trying to like impersonate other styles of rap music, but God, it's just so. I wrote a few notes on my re-listen. I said, God is still awful. And then I went, okay, God is not that bad, but the hook is not good. So I think some of his lyricism and some of his flow in it is kind of catchy and kind of fun, but I'm never going to enjoy the "This one guys I like." I hate it. And then it ends with Duckworth, which again is a fantastic Kendrick song. And to be honest, I think if you cut out Loyalty, Love, and then God, and it becomes a 11-song album with just what's left, you pretty much have a perfect Kendrick album again. It's still just not for me on the same artistic scale as To Pimp a Butterfly is. But it is like a song where I don't not enjoy any of those songs. It's just having those in there, having such a drastic change and having such a drastic drop in what feels like quality and effort and artistic ability, it takes the whole album down a few pegs. It makes the whole thing feel a bit weaker. Yeah, Sam.
Yeah, like it's just like he just needs to refine it more. Like it's back to the thing where like it feels like he rushed it because like it's just it doesn't feel as refined and thought out. I mean, it feels thought out, just not. It's like he didn't listen to it like as much after and like just shave off the fat. Like,
well, it's like, like he wasn't hard enough on himself.
Yeah.
Because I think it doesn't have any bonus tracks, but also it doesn't have an Untitled Unmastered situation. There's no bonuses that we didn't hear, so it's like there must, you didn't really trim any fat. You just kept it all on there. And also the weird thing about the collector's edition of the album being the album in reverse, and this whole theme of the whole thing put it in reverse, and it has a different message, I think is a bit pretentious, to be honest. Like, of course, if you play songs in a different order, they're going to have a different message. But yeah, I still very much like the album. I think I actually, listening to it again, I actually enjoyed it as an album more than I thought and than I remembered I did. But I think it's just the like mental imagery of love and loyalty, and God just being these big red marks in my brain. It's just like, it sort of makes me dismiss the album a little bit. what are some of your guys' favorites then? I basically just went through all the track listing, but what are some of your guys' highlights on this one in particular? George, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. I think, yeah, DNA, Yar, and Element back to back are really good. I find that trio, I don't know, it's very easy to. I think it's a lot easier to listen to, just as all the tracks. That's the thing. I think, yeah, like I said earlier, he just wasn't trying as hard, and he got a few duds. He got a few gods in there, and a few a few stinkies. But I think I just had a thought. If you look at the album covers, I think it's really interesting because the other two are very I don't know, they're interesting to look at, and this one is just him looking sad with "damn" written above it, and maybe that's more important than you think, because he said he used the same album art guy for all three, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So maybe there's a reason it's not as epic looking. It's not as like interesting to look at. It's just him going damn. Maybe he's just tired. It could be like he put his heart on the track, man. When it went to Pimp a Butterfly, and it didn't quite pull off, and now it's just like damn. I'm gonna do this, but it's not gonna be. I'm not gonna.
Damn as an album.
Sorry. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that "Damn" as an album statement feels like he took a look at America and went, "Damn." That's what the album feels like. Yeah.
It's he just maybe doesn't feel as confident going as grand as he did before. Maybe that's shaking him. And his face, he just looks so miserable.
Yeah, he does.
He just looks so deflated.
He looks angry as well, though.
Yeah.
I think it is interesting that the aesthetic of it is that darkness, that bleakness. It's what it feels like. I think it's just I'm very okay with that being a theme of an album. I just don't like that. I find it annoying that he decided even then to deviate and make it a more commercial album. But obviously, it's been very successful. Like the Damn World Tour was very successful. The sales-wise, it was ridiculously successful. Humble is massive. And it, like, I remember when I went to see Kendrick live, I was sat next to two people. I was so excited. And I was like, "Oh, what's your favorite Kendrick album?" And they were like, "Oh, I don't know. I just like Humble." And I asked like 5 people, and I was just like, I'm there freaking out that he's going to perform All Right or something from Two Pimp a Butterfly, which he did a lot of. But it was just like, I was so like, what? People don't even know. Like, all they know is, damn, because of how successful it was, because of how commercially successful it was. And it does feel like the most commercial album. But even then, it doesn't feel like it was made for commercial, for sales. It feels, again, like an artistic statement. I just wish that statement was stronger, I guess.
Maybe there was more, perhaps corporate meddling in the album.
Maybe.
Like, he was like, "Oh, we don't really want you to take that many risks, just because we want you to make a lot of money, and you need to put in these standalone type songs like."
Yeah. He did an interview about it though. I remember when the album came out, and he said that he thought Down was his best album.
Yeah, I've seen that.
He felt like it was a culmination of everything he'd be working towards, a culmination of all these different elements throughout all of his other albums. But to be honest, I think To Pimp a Butterfly was that. I think that's what that was, and it felt. Yeah, I don't think he has enough of those elements. But yeah, I still very much love the album. I think it's a great album. I think Duckworth is a fantastic finale. And I think DNA is, to be honest, the proper opener for the album is explosive and angry, and it's a great album and a commentary on Black life in America and fame and sort of like the hood god. Any other lasting points that either of you wanna leave before we move off of Damn?
Yeah, it's what you were saying about corporate meddling, and now I can see why loyalty is on there just because of Rihanna. Like, just I could see like maybe, if he made the song with Rihanna, and then like I don't know, because I don't know Kendrick's opinion. He might really like the song and think it works. That's just his opinion. Like, it's just like I could see maybe if he didn't like it, and then corporate people came in and said, "Look, you've got Rihanna on it, you have to have it." Like,
Yeah, some executives like, listen, we got Rihanna in the studio, buddy. You're making this song and
Yeah.
it's going on the album. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Rihanna's next door, guys. Can we get her in? Like, just quickly. Like,
Yeah, we got Rihanna.
Either he
Yeah,
was like not forced to make a song with Rihanna, or he made the song and then they were like, "Oh, you've got to put this song on." Like,
oh, Rihanna's just sent in a verse. You got to add it.
just throw it in. Yeah.
I do like Rihanna, but it just doesn't fit the album.
I don't like the song either, but
I thought it was alright. I had an interesting perspective of the album because I listened to it first. I listened to it before I listened to, Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City, and I pretty much enjoyed the whole album. But going back to it now after listening to the other two albums, it does feel a bit deflating. It feels like, damn, as we were saying, it's just not got that. It just doesn't have like the teeth the other albums do. It doesn't seem like he's, because if narratively, Good Kid, Mad City is like an introspective look at like life in Compton. Pimp a Butterfly is like this grand sort of statement on Black America, and then Damn just is there. It's not really. It's not really fitting. Yeah, it's not really fitting that narrative. Because it was like you had the introspective, then you had the grand look, and then I think he tried to bring it back down.
Combine the both, yeah. Introspective look at Grand America. Maybe. To be honest, the only way you could have gone bigger is if he did an album about Earth, about the entirety of planet Earth. Yeah.
Oh,
and
he's gonna hook up with Lil Dicky. He's doing.
He's actually gonna bring Tupac back to do a verse.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's anybody who, when they listened to Pimp a Butterfly, they heard that ending bit and they thought, "Oh my god, this is confirming that Tupac's still alive. That's what this is right now. He's still alive, and this is an interview with him."
Yeah. I don't know. I think going back to it, it's interesting to think that he said that it was his best album when it just isn't.
But I guess it's different for an artist because you always sort of feel like the new thing is the best thing you've made. And maybe for him, if he did feel like Pimp a Butterfly was a failure, if for him this felt like such a massive success on all accounts, then I could understand it feeling like his best work. And also when you're validated by people who are saying this is your best thing yet, this is such a good banger, when Humble is doing as well as it's doing, you must think to yourself, oh, I guess this is my best thing yet because it's doing so well. Yeah.
I also think you go ahead, Sam.
Oh yeah, there was one radio thing where like they laid out all the albums in front of him. They were like, put it in order from your best to your worst in your opinion. And he did put Pimp a Butterfly second, and then Damn first, then Good Kid, Mad City, then Section 80. And like, I think it could just be because it was so successful. Everyone was saying, "Oh my god, Kendrick, this is really good. Like, it's done so well." Like, I do feel like that could possibly influenced him like that into thinking it's his first album.
I think I guess Good Kid, Mad City got like his foot in the door, but then Damn sort of put the world, like, made him like a megastar almost,
Yeah, it did. It really did. I think because Good Kid, Mad City made him a figure in hip hop, like an actual, like, oh
name.
Shit, Kendrick. And then Pimp Butterfly was like a side, like an upgrade for me anyway. I made him be like, oh my god, he's not. It's not just hip hop. It's music. He is a guy now in music. And then Dan was like almost not taking it down a step, but like putting him into superstar, like which actually doesn't necessarily mean artistic integrity, because I think Madonna is a superstar, but I don't think she has the same artistic integrity as they like to Pimp a Butterfly does, right? So it's stepping into that next stratosphere where it's about money, it's about image, it's about success. And so in those respects, I could see why you think it's the best album.
Which is funny when it has like the song Humble about, trying to stay humble, and yet he's trying to make the money. I just had another thought. Maybe he made Damn so successful so he can try like having another stab at something like Pimp a Butterfly.
Possibly, yeah.
So it has more reach. Because when he made it, he wasn't like the megastar that he is. So maybe he's thinking politically, if I make this commercial album and get all the eyes on it, my next album's another Pimp a Butterfly-esque album.
That leads on to leads on to my final talking point, which
what a
is
segue.
about the future of Kendrick, his legacy, and also new releases from him. We know that he's been working on an album for some time, don't we? There's been some leaks here and there, or just some notes about what it's going to be about. Not about necessarily thematically, but what's happening. I think I've heard that it's a lot of rock influence. It's a lot of guitars.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of mostly just rock influence, which again feels like a bit of a departure. So maybe you are right with that, George. But I guess the final question is just what would you guys like to see from another Kendrick release?
Don't know, just
whatever he wants to make.
Yeah, wherever he wants to make, because he this sort of artist where we just want him to make what he wants to make, like, because he has the ability to turn what's happening in society and also in his own life into proper music, rather than like because obviously he's had a daughter now, and then I think regardless of what the main subject matter is in this new album, we're gonna have it's going to be about family. I think there's going to be stuff about having a daughter, and that I've never had it happen, but I know that people always talk about the profound effect it has on you when you become a parent, and so that might be a heavy part of the themes of this next album. In terms of possible time frame, I really have no idea. We started hearing rumors and stuff. We started hearing rumors and stuff towards the end of last year, and every other album he's done in the last 10 years was a 2-year gap. And now it's been 3 years. It might be this year, it might be next year. I really don't know. I hope it's this year. I hope it's the second half of this year. And I hope that with lockdown, he's probably had time to work on it. But I read an article earlier this year saying that the album is finished, basically. And I'm wondering, because he was meant to perform at all these festivals, whether he was planning to release it, and just coronavirus has just had to delay it.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, he's not the sort of artist to say a release date loads before, say, "Oh, I've been working on it." So
and also,
we just don't know.
Actually, that brings up a different point because of that delay, and because you can't suddenly start a tour and start doing merch tours and start doing festivals. Because nowadays, artists make most of their money from merch and touring. It's not music. And so I guess if you can't capitalize on that, perhaps maybe they're like, let's just wait until we can, because it might be a big financial hit. If people are streaming it, which is how people listen to music, that doesn't actually make that much money. And in terms of business, and in terms of probably what Top Dog are thinking about, you're actually right. They might be waiting until they can tour, until they can sell merch and do all of that easily.
Yeah. Because I don't think he would be headlining all these festivals for the first time since Stam without him having released something.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think you're right, actually. Obviously, the only other project he's sort of done in that time frame was he did a lot of work on the Black Panther soundtrack, which there's a few good songs on there. I think it's better than the film is, but that's for another day. Is there anything that you guys want to plug, Sam? I know we did a little article blog thing together. He's frozen. George, is there anything you want to plug or talk about?
Yeah, just go watch Caramel Cowboy, Spotify.
Yeah.
Go watch Funky. No,
listen,
really.
Listen to him.
Listen to all his songs.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the shout out for me.
I did a blog, I interviewed Ellis. You can have a look at it. SJPB blogs. Please have a look. Very much appreciated.
It's about making music on a budget. I'll put the link in the description below. I will also put socials for George and Sam in the description below, so you can follow them on your Instagrams, on your Twitters, and everything in between. To both of you, thank you very much for coming on, talking about King Kendrick Lamar himself. This podcast is the longest episode I've done so far. I think we're close to hour 45. I will edit it a bit and make sure it's a bit more snappy. But thank you both for joining me. I'm thinking about doing some episodes in the future about Frank Ocean, doing some episodes about Tyler, the Creator, doing some episodes about Kanye West, in the same sort of fashion where we have a look at discographies I think in Kendrick's case, Tim and Butterfly, Good Kid, Mad City, and Damn feel like the quintessential Kendrick experience. But with some of those other artists, we probably have a look at every single thing they've released, and especially in like Frank Ocean's case, where he's only really done 3 sort of album-y things and then a few singles. I think Frank Ocean would be a fun one, but yeah, Kanye would be great as well. If people have any opinions, drop them in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe.
Hit the bell. Make sure you hit the bell.
Yeah, hit the bell. But thank you very much, both of you, for coming on and talking. I hope you had a good time. I'm sure people will see you on here in the future.